Ohana Book 2 Birds of a Feather Chapter 5. For being late in the summer, the lake was quite devoid of its usual patrons. The Wachowskis' boat sat on the shore near the boat shed, anchor down, and only the sound of tails whooping water broke through the cadences of birds awing. It had been the young Fox idea to come to the lake when they'd been asked what they wanted to do for the weekend, the first of many in the Wachowski household since bettling robotic, and aside from a few bushwalkers here and there weren't many around. Still, Sonic decided to stay ashore for his own safety. I mean, the safety of the Master Emerald. Maddie and Tom were playing in the shallows with Knuckles and Ozzy while Tails showed off his latest invention, a hoverboard that was capable of water flotation and fast travel on the lake surface. The human adults had learned since the first time not to ask where he got the extra parts from for his invention, but Sonic had an inkling that was the reason why a couple of appliances weren't working in the house anymore. Tails had promised Tom he'd replace them once he figured out how to make it work without resorting to taking things apart, and Tom in turn had taken him to Carl's junkyard. Sonic reclined on his towel, laying on his stomach rather than his back and letting his arm pillow his head. The summer sun beamed down and he heard Tails yelling for him to look, sighing and dragging a hand down his face.
Doing great, buddy.
He yelled back, barely looking over his shoulder.
You dishonor him by not turning around.
The hedgehog tilted his sunglasses up slightly to see Knuckles standing over him, dripping wet from the water, and rolled over onto his back to share his blanket, reaching into the cooler past the Master Emerald for one of the Echida's grape juices. Knuckles flopped down onto the blanket, holding his hand out for the juice and feeling it placed in his bare hand. Cool, and he popped the straw into it before speaking again.
Why do you not join us, Hedgehog?
Someone's gotta keep an eye on our big chunk of jewelry.
He responded, patting the cooler and getting an orange soda for himself, closing the lid as he sat up. Sonic lifted his shades to rest behind his ears on top of his head, cracking his can as he gave Knuckles a look.
Besides, the temple didn't exactly do much to quell my water phobia, you know.
Knuckles scrunched his muzzle as he recalled that moment when Sonic had refused to leave him despite his oxygen supply running out and his inability to swim well.
But surely the only way to get over your fear is to face it,
he said pointedly, sipping his grape juice as Maddie and Tom chased each other in the shallows and Ozzy barked happily, jumping and running around their legs.
My tribe would often put its trials to reflect dangers faced on the battlefield and in the jungle so that our warriors would not be scared of anything.
You look where that got them.
Sonic muttered around the rim of his can, watching the way his brother twitched at the diss to his people. Knuckles must be getting better at brushing off his jibes because no punch came. Instead, he shook his dreadlocks, water hitting Sonic in the face and causing him to grumble.
Hey, Knucks.
Knuckles looked at him from where he was wringing out his ghouls underneath the gold jewelry Maddie had helped him weave into them that morning, juice box balancing on his knee.
Yes.
Why did you come back for me back then?
The Echida sighed and let his fingers run through his quills, brown for contrasting to the red.
I have already told you that it would have been dishonorable of me to let you drown after you saved me yourself.
Well, you bet.
Sonic chewed on his bottom lip, worrying it as he watched Tails do a flip on his hoverboard.
You were so sure that it was your enemy. What changed?
Aside from the fact that Robotnik stole the emerald out from under my nose and left me for dead.
Yes.
Knuckles lifted his grape juice and drank, humming around his straw and closing his eyes.
I think I knew it deep down that you were never really the enemy, I had been tracking you from across the galaxy when I came across him, desperate to escape the mushroom planet, and he had your quill.
Sonic felt his body twitch at the mention of his loose quill, the one that had caused so much trouble for him and Tom the first time around.
I was blinded by the fact that I had finally found you, that you had the piece to the puzzle that my tribe didn't.
The compass.
The Echidna nodded.
When you went for the fox rather than the compass, I knew your first thought was his safety. You desired he survive. Nobody could have cared less whether I survived or not. In fact, I think he had been planning on killing me before you interrupted us in the Master Emerald's chamber.
Ignoring the look of horror on Sonic's face, Knuckles closed his eyes, knees drawn and arms draped over them, hand dangling with his drink in the middle.
You had only known the fox for a day and wanted him to be safe. I think perhaps I was too enthralled by the prospect of my quest finally coming to an end to care whether I survived or not.
It was the first time he'd admitted these things to anyone, much less Sonic. Whether Maddie found him up on a sleepless night watching that friend's show or outside early in the morning doing his run exercises before she joined him, he had never brought it up. The Lord of Donuts he was less close to, and he didn't wish to divulge such to young tales as he figured the topic not child-friendly. Knuckles looked down at his juice box before he blinked, staring at the hedgehog curled into his side in a half-attempted hug, Sonic resting his head on his shoulder. Knuckles turned his neck to reciprocate, chin resting on top and sending the hedgehog's sunglasses askew.
You saved me first, and I thank you, Sonic.
Hey, this mushy stuff isn't like you, Knux.
He teased, pushing the Echidna away as though he had been the one to initiate the hug. Sonic let his finger run around the rim of his can, finally deciding to look at him when Knuckles had glanced back out at the water.
But thanks.
Hey, you too.
Maddie's voice carried over the sound of Tails' childish glee, and they looked over to see Tom leaning down with his hands on his knees gasping for air while Ozzy panted, coming out of the water to flop near them.
What's taking you so long? I need someone to help me beat Tom.
Coming.
Knuckles set his juice box down and stood, wagging a finger at Ozzy as though the dog knew not to take his drink and receiving a blank look and pants in return. Sonic lay back down, expecting to hear Knuckles hitting the water soon, before he was scooped up over the Echidna's shoulder and let out a shriek.
Hey, what are you doing, Knucklehead?
Come, it is high time you stopped being afraid and started embracing the water, hedgehog.
No, Knux, put me down, Dad.
Do not attempt to stop me from teaching the blue one how to swim, Lord of Donuts.
Go ahead, big guy. Trust me, I tried.
This isn't teaching, this is assault. Knuckles.
The sound of the Wachowski family's laughter echoed through the lake's volley even as the shadows of the trees and clouds passed over the water. Tails could be heard laughing and offering Sonic his hoverboard as his brother clung to their older brother, Knuckles grinning from ear to ear for the first time in a long time. And even as he panicked, Sonic had a smile on his face from the Echidna feeling comfortable enough around them to goof off. They were becoming a family, and he was sure wherever they were, Longclaw, Knuckles' father, would be proud of them. A frog croaked on the far shore before it was scooped up by a paw.